Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations where health is wealth. As always, it's Monday night. What night is it on Monday night? It's Couch Conversations with the doctors. So we're going to ask you guys to come on in and share, and share again because it's Monday night and it's time for Couch Conversations. I'm going to go around as always and we're going to introduce our great panelists that are here. We have a few people who's running late. So before you ask me, where is Dr. Maya, Dr. 100? She is on her way. She just left and she's trying to hurry up and get home so she can get here to be with us. I'm going to start with my colleague and coworker who left me. And after dealing with 19-degree weather today, I cannot be angry with him. And that's our very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Dr. Graham, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Nikki. It was any consolation. It was storming for the last 24 hours. We had nothing but rain, thunder, and lightning. So it may be a little bit warmer, but we still can't go outside. So I'm Dr. Graham. I spent 30 years practicing rheumatology in the western suburbs of Chicago. I spent 2 years working in the representative's office in Washington, D.C. An amazing experience. I'm going to try and answer your questions the best I can and see what we can do about health.
Okay, all right. Dr. Tony Hampton, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Always happy to be with you here with you guys. Excited that we have a holiday week. Right now, I'm always happy to feel the spirit of the holidays. I am a family doctor, an obesity doctor, some extra training in nutrition and functional medicine. I try to spread my voice to as many people as I can via social media, YouTube, in clinic, in my health system, wherever people will listen. And that's because we still have a disconnect between lifestyle and health, and we're still kind of medicine centric. And my goal is to move us towards a model where we use lifestyle to heal, not just the medicine. So I hope that resonates with you guys, and I'm looking forward to our conversation tonight.
All right.
Outstanding, outstanding. I want to say hey to everyone who is listening. Remember to chime on in. Remember to share just as well, to share. Dr. James Miller, the man who says that I threaten him to be here every Monday night, but he is always here and on time. Dr. Miller.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. James Miller. I'm an internist. I retired from clinical medicine, practicing clinical medicine in 2019. However, I'm still concerned and involved in healing the community. And though I don't write prescriptions and that kind of thing, I still am involved in the process of what we can do to make our community healthier, and to give advice and to do what I can to encourage people to seek appropriate care as we go through our daily lives. So I'm here tonight hoping that we can give you some information, maybe some suggestions in terms of things that you can do that will give you a fuller, healthier life.
Outstanding, outstanding. I want to say hey to Motivation 360, who's here saying greetings to everyone. Well, Dr. Miller, why don't you go ahead and start our conversation?
Okay, so, we are in this season of giving. And, a little bit over 2,000 years ago, we got the greatest gift, which was the gift of a Savior. And tonight, we want to be able to give what we can. And, so advice is what we have, and our experience and our knowledge is what we have to give. And so I'm just going to start out by talking about something that is near and dear to me, and that is Black men. I practiced about 40 years on the west side, south side, and in the near western suburbs. And the majority of that time, my service was provided to women. However, there were Black men that were in my practice. And in that process, I learned a lot in terms of how we kind of behave in terms of our health care. Sometimes we behave in somewhat unhealthy manners in this sense. And then part of this is not really is related to how we raise our boys. I think Black men especially, seem to think that that you got to be strong, you got to be macho, you got to be able to take on anything and never really show your emotions or show any signs of weakness. But there's some things that are important when we talk about strength and weakness, and it is not weak to seek those things that are going to make you healthier. It is not weak to express those things that are causing you to pain and difficulty. It is not weak to care and to love and to express those things to other people. And so, one of the things that I had been involved with, I'm usually involved with that once or twice a year during, organized programs where we go out and speak with Black men about health care and about the status of our health and what is needed in order to be able to be healthier, and also what talking about what we need to focus on. On this show we've heard people talk a lot about preventative care, about doing those things that are going to keep you from having heart attacks and kidney failure and heart failure, and you really need to begin to think about that and not wait until you are so sick. Once these disease process take hold, then it's a fight to try to overcome, and as opposed to trying to do those things from the beginning that help to keep you out of that vulnerable situation where you're trying to fight against something that now already has grabbed hold of you and it began to cause damage to your organ systems. And so part of that process is first, we all some of the earlier things that we do in life is we got to eat, and making good choices is a very important thing. Choose to do that which is good for you, and refrain from doing those things which are harmful to you. And it is good. It's good to know what your health condition is. It is good to know what problems that you're going to have to face and how you're going to deal with those things. And so seeking a healthcare provider at an early time in your life, not, I know people say, well, why do I need a doctor? I'm not sick. Well, I see people buy cars and, they don't wait till the car break down before they find a mechanic to check it out and to do the maintenance service and the whole bit. Well, the same thing in terms of your body. You don't want to wait until your organ system have failed before you seek to get evaluation and maintenance work done. And so, one of the things that as we looked at with this, during the past few years that the COVID epidemic has been upon us, is that we look at the difference in different communities of the health status and of the suffering and the death rate and those kinds of things from people who lived in certain communities. And the thing is, sick people don't tolerate infections or much of anything else, as opposed to people who are healthy and who are well. So it's important to know that you can maintain and you can keep yourself healthy, because most of us start out healthy, but as life starts out, we have a process that we live, and we add things and we take away things, we supply things and we don't supply things sometimes. And those are things that lead to us having deficits, having damage to our vascular systems and our musculoskeletal system. And these are things that we call diseases. And so the effort is, let us do what we can to prevent diseases from causing us damage to our systems before it happens. And I over the years, it was kind of ironic that oftentimes when men would come to see me, and I would pick up my chart, and it seemed like more often than not, I would see my nurse would put down that don't want to give complaint, don't want to state complaint. from a man. And so, I want to talk to the doctor about this. And so, that was a clue. That was a clue that there's something going on with a function that he don't like discussing with other people. And so what I'm saying is that I found it that the guy would find his way to my office when he had a problem with sexual dysfunction. When he had severe pain that he didn't know how to manage. And so all I'm trying to say is that let us not wait until we break down, because all these other things that are going to keep us healthy are vital to us. As I always would tell the guys, I said, listen, before I started getting into the other things, I want to check out how your heart is doing. And he said, well, that's the problem. I don't have a heart. I said, I'm talking about the HEART heart. I say, if that's not healthy, that other one is not going to function. So, but the point is that we need to make certain that those vital organs, that's not your sexual organs are important. I'm not trying to minimize that. However, if your heart and your lungs and your kidneys are not functioning well, you're going to have a much more difficult time to be able to function, to have a healthy sex life. And so it's important that you keep those things well. And so again, we're appealing, and that it's not a painful process. It can be a very informative process. It can be a process that you can even enjoy once you get to know the doctor, once you get to trust the doctor, once you get to open up and get to learn the doctor, and the doctor gets to know you, so that we can deal with your issues. So I'm appealing to, when we started looking at the stats, and I was looking at some things a few days ago in terms of lifespan and the fact that that the amount of time that Black men live.
Oh no.
Looks like our friend
I
has.
think Dr. Miller got frozen.
Yeah.
Well, I know why he's waiting to get unfrozen. One of you guys can finish that sentence, because I know.
Well, I'd just like to add that one of the real critical features is many of the problems that take place internally are silent until they're well advanced. You may not know if you have high blood pressure until there's damage to your kidneys. You may not know that you've got problems going on with your lungs until you got to start getting short of breath. And some of the heart disease is silent too. So part of the problem is we can't all know everything that's going on in our system. And the only way to check things out internally is to have someone like a physician do those tests to help us understand what's your state of health. The other issue is that all of our systems are not designed for indefinite life. And so as we get older, things start to work a little bit slower, don't work as well. And so it's really important to pick that up as that begins to change, because that may mean changes in lifestyle, changes in habits, changes in medications, and other changes too. So that's really the value that Dr. Miller is talking about seeing that physician, having him get to know you and understand how that physician takes a look inside and understands where you're at.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, he kind of started the conversation just talking about, Black men in general. And I would argue people in general have to think about, why are we here? Do you really want to get to the end of your journey and have, things that you wish you had done different? And a lot of times men in general are not always comfortable with their feelings. So sometimes they just don't know how to express themselves in a way that they need to. And when you hold that back, you miss an opportunity to connect with people and to be present. So one of the things that men need to do is to be comfortable expressing themselves, because by doing that, people can't really know what you're thinking or feeling or going through if you don't express it. So that's one thing I really try to get the men I see in my practice to do. I also know that men try to, we're always trying to be the breadwinner. We're trying to, pay the bills, make sure everything is done so that the home is, stable. But sometimes we do it at our harm, because I have so many men in my practice who are, really working a couple of jobs that maybe they didn't need to. Maybe if they budgeted, maybe if they reduce some expenses, things that you think you gotta have, you don't really have to have, because you know, truth be told, the body can only tolerate so much, and the body needs to have some time for recovery, to be, rejuvenated. And if we're constantly working, constantly trying to, get the next bill paid, as opposed to reducing debt, we may find ourselves in harm's way. And I'll be honest, I think we're all guilty of thinking it'll be somebody else. It won't be me. I won't be the one that's holding my chest. I won't be the one that, can't move the left side of my body. And the reality is these things happen at younger and younger ages. So I think a lot of men, and men of color in particular, really want to not only be able to express yourself, but, maybe think about how hard you're working, and maybe work a little smarter instead of working harder. And I think that's really important. And what I'm trying to do in my life personally is just trying to be a little happier, right? So even I just drove by. I live in Oak Park, Illinois, and I just drove by the Oak Park Theater, and I looked at that screen and I saw, Emancipation and Avatar 2, and I hadn't even seen the Black Panther part, whatever it is now. And I was like, man, I want to see all of these movies. So I'm going to make sure that during this break that we have, that I pause for a moment, and that I actually take my wife to see some of these movies, and that I, pause and enjoy the movie, and be present, and not be looking at my phone while I'm at the movie, And I think that we need to do these things. So I think being happy is a very complex thing. It means different things for different people, but we need to not only get the health care we need and make sure we're okay, but we need to just learn these basic principles of being a human being, and don't get caught up in these stereotypes of what a man's supposed to be. Sometimes the best man in the neighborhood is the one that's able to express himself, able to smile and be happy. Sometimes you drive through the neighborhood and they look so hard, they don't even want you don't even want to look at nobody. And we shouldn't have to live that way. You know what I mean? We should be able to smile at each other and bring some positive energy. So I just think that if we take these basic principles, and it's okay to change, I think that we'll find ourselves in a better place.
I'd like to add to this conversation. I've got some plumbing work going on here right now, so if you hear noise in the background and that kind of stuff, or am I having to leave, that's why. But I did want to say one other thing, and that is, I think the medical profession, I used to say this in a lot of our lectures, we've done, from one point of view, I won't say in all, but in one point of view, we have trained people incorrectly. And what I mean by that is we have people thinking about their disease in terms of symptoms. And that's the absolute wrong way to think about a disease, because by the time what you have produces a symptom that's specific enough to say that this is a problem or that's a problem, you've got far more damage, or you're further down the road in the disease process than you think. So, and we've done a lot of that. Now, I'm not saying that symptoms aren't important, but when you think about FAST, for example, face, arms, the whole mnemonic we have for stroke, or even for heart attacks, chest pain, shortness of breath, that's not our early symptom. That's a late symptom. I mean, you're probably having a heart attack by that time. So I think that what we need to do is focus that perhaps the earliest symptoms that we can think about are the kinds of lifestyles that we lead and the foods that we eat, because we know, we don't have to guess. We know the kinds of things, food-wise and other things, and other states that we may have, place us at different risk levels for different diseases. And so by the time you get a cough or cough up blood that is something that may be referable to a lung cancer, you already may already have a pretty bad lung cancer. Or if you're having BPH, guys was saying, I said, well, if you get to the point where you can't urinate at all, that's not early symptom. There's a problem going on. Or if it's some of the other things, there's no symptoms of high blood pressure. If you get a symptom that's directly related to high blood pressure, and I would yield to my internal colleagues on this call, that you've got a much worse problem than you think. So we need to do the things that we just mentioned earlier. Don't guess, get a test. Don't guess, get a test. If you don't have to guess whether your blood pressure is high or not, you can get the blood pressure measured. We don't have to guess whether or not you're at a higher risk for stroke because of atherosclerosis or what have you. You can get a test that will tell you that. You don't have to guess whether or not, these things are referable to one thing or another, especially nowadays. Our tests are so much better. So I would stop there, but I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I'll add that this is what's sad about what Dr. Mason is saying. The question is, why bother getting a master's in nutrition and functional medicine? And that's because I felt like I didn't get adequate training in medical school. It's actually embarrassing when you think about it, that I had to make my own decision that I needed to get some clarification. And so the question is, what did I learn in functional medicine? Well, some of which I learned was what Dr. Mason said. I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. And what's striking to me is that I literally was on a call. This is how crazy. I was on a call and I was kind of celebrating the fact that there was a way to use lifestyle to help people. And during the call, the one of the specialists, the only thing they could think to say is, I hear what you're saying, but some people can't tolerate those dietary changes. And that is true, that we have to individualize what we recommend. But instead of focusing on the beauty of lifestyle, the specialist focused on maybe a handful of people who don't tolerate the dietary change. I just couldn't believe it. So when I learned about the difference between conventional medicine and functional medicine, number one, I learned that I was doing just what Dr. Mason said. I was treating symptoms. And when you treat the symptoms, you never really get to the cause. It's almost like a rash. Somebody will give you a little cortisol cream on a rash, and it'll clear up a little bit, but then it keeps coming back. And now you're using the cream forever, and you never really got to why you have a rash in the first place. So the first thing is, conventional medicine treats symptoms. Functional medicine treats the root cause. So we figure out, well, why do you have a rash in the first place? We get to that. We may still treat it, but we try to figure out the cause, and that way the rash won't come back. And the next thing Dr. Mason talked about is you're not treating, not just symptoms. You're not just treating just like a one little organ. Your whole body is interconnected, and it is absolutely imperative that you understand that what happens in your gut affects your brain. What happens in your brain affects your gut. And we can talk about your heart and all these other, the neurological system, how it's all interconnected. So this is what's beautiful about it. So if you fix one part of if you fix your gut, you may be less depressed. You know what I mean? Isn't that an interesting concept? So if your gut is healthy, and so many patients that I help with their diabetes and they make lifestyle changes, oh, I'm not depressed anymore. Oh, that heartburn went away. Oh, my blood pressure is better, because they're all interconnected. So, but you can't do that improvement in all these other areas just by taking a blood pressure pill, because the blood pressure pill is only focused on your blood pressure. But if you make lifestyle changes, you're going to have all of these other things get better. So the key is to not treat the symptoms, and that all that does is like mask the disease. What you want to do instead is treat the entire body. Another thing I like about functional medicine is very like patient centric. It's really about the individual, and instead of having some recipe of success for everybody, you look at the individual and you see what works for them. A lot of the dietary changes I made over the years was based on what my body told me I needed to do. So that's really another important point. So I think that the key message here is you think about the big picture. Why am I not feeling well in the first place? And recognize that if you think about the things that cause us to get sick, stress, lack of sleep, bad relationships, being emotionally unstable, not recovering from trauma, eating poorly, things like that, eating too much. That's why I fast most mornings. Those are the things I think that are going to drive results. And I just hope that as we have this conversation, that more and more people are engaged with the idea that, yes, you can. Yes, you can get better. Yes, you can be healthy in spite of your age. You're saying, well, I'm already 70. I didn't live a good life. No, you haven't. You still got 30 more at least to go. So you have plenty of time. And just imagine for a moment what the world would look like if those grandbabies and great grandbabies don't have you around. Do you really think that's a better world for them? Wouldn't it be nice to still be here and to share your wisdom? And as crazy as you may be, you probably got a little bit more wisdom than the people who have just gotten here after you. So you have a lot to offer, and just having you present is really a testimony that your babies and your great grandbabies should be able to share. So we have so many reasons, and I think that's what you need to do. You need to figure out, why were you born? Why are you here? What value can you still add to the world? And start adding that value. We all were uniquely made, and we all have so much to offer. And I don't know what it is. I remember when I used to ride the train track from Austin and Lake Street downtown, and this guy on the train track would sing every stop. He had it was sunny. He was singing like a little rap for California. We got to California, we get to the next stop. And so his purpose was to bring a different train experience to the people who were on his train. And that was a big deal, because I just loved when I got on his train, because I knew he'd have a little rhyme or a song, to go with each stop. So we all have value to add. And so don't look at the Will Smiths of the world who have achieved great things. You don't have to be Will Smith. You don't have to be Michael Jordan. You don't have to be, any of those people. What you do within your family, within your church, within your community is all the value you need to add. And trust me, there's somebody in that community, church, or family who's going to be blessed by you still being here.
Yeah. I think that, as we look at these things, we're looking at, you spoke in terms of value, and the value of a life, the value of an individual, and that individual's contribution. And I think that, as we, we're living in a time now where there's so much seemingly expression of hate and expression of selfishness. And, one of the things that you just talked about is that connection between the old and the young. There's so much wisdom to be passed on, so much knowledge to be gained by the young, as long as we participate with them, as long as we give them that advantage. And so these are things that we have to figure out a better way. I mean, so I think we've reached a time where it's seeming that as people get older, it seemed to be the answer is to move them out of the way, and because we need a younger, faster buck in front of everybody. However, the value of that individual and the knowledge and wisdom that they've gained over their lifetime and the experiences, that younger person may be able to move faster, but don't have that knowledge that they can pass on at the same. And so there's a value there. We need to make certain that we protect that value and that we utilize it, because it is an opportunity to pass on something that may prevent someone else from making a mistake that older individual made. I can tell someone about things that I've faced in life, and consequences and the whole bit. Your situation may be different, but however, as they say, if it looked like a duck and it's quacked like a duck, it's probably a duck. So even though what's surrounding you may look different than what surrounded me at that time, but it may be the same thing that in a different disguise. And so we can still learn from each other, and we can still help each other and make life better for each other. And so I think that, one of the things that I will always have tried to do is to make certain that I bring grandparents together with younger people in terms of helping them to pass on the wisdom that they had. Because wisdom doesn't come from the book; it comes from the life experiences, and that is something that you can't really, it doesn't just come to you. It's something that occurs as you go along. However, someone can pass on wisdom. Someone who's had that experience can pass on their knowledge and their wisdom, which can be a help for you as you take your flight through this life journey.
I think you're right, Doctor. I'm sorry, again, I'm going back and forth to deal with my issues here today.
Mhm.
But one of the things I would say to what you just said, Dr. Miller, is that people get information differently now than they used to.
Yeah.
They really, really do. And the sources that they accept as credible sources are different now than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what they get, I mean, just the way people communicate. I remember, now I'm going to date myself. So Dr. Tony, you're probably too young to remember this, but there was a time there wasn't the phone was a cord. We had one phone in our kitchen, one phone for the whole place. It was in the kitchen. And when it rang, no matter who it was that you had to talk to them right there in the kitchen. And there was no such thing as private conversations, no such thing as any of that stuff that people cherish so much today. Because if you couldn't say it in the kitchen, then you couldn't say it on that phone. And if you couldn't say it on that phone, then you didn't talk to that person. And so we had other ways. We actually had far more direct communication with people by actually talking to them. So to your point, Dr. Miller, if somebody was being hurt, it wasn't something that was being hurt remotely and you didn't know anything about it. You could see it and hear it in the voices of the people that you talk to. And as a result, I think it may make a difference in the way we communicate today, because today, a lot of times we don't even look at people. We send people texts. We don't have any human interaction with people, except that we've now created this artificial human way of communicating with people, which does not allow the spirit of what I'm talking about. And maybe Dr. Tony, you guys are younger, but I don't know what all these doggone emojis mean. I don't know what all that stuff means. If you hurt me, I'm going to look hurt. I'm going to react to you in a voice that sounds hurt. I'm not going to be trying to send back faces upside down and all that kind of stuff. So, and lastly, I would say that we also have to understand that the communication styles. I mean, in the old days, we had blocks. I lived on a block, and every person on that block was family, whether they were biological family or not. It did not matter. And any of them had license to help with doing what needed to be done to me to help me correct my wayward ways if it were necessary. So that feeling of community is, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but as we live in these tall towers and other areas, that sense of community that we used to have, that sense of sharing. I not only knew my next door neighbors, but I knew their cousins, I knew their uncles, I knew their aunties, you know everybody. And so I don't mean to continue to rant, but there's a lot that's missing, and we can't compare now with then because it's a totally different dynamic that we're operating under.
But would you want to compare now with then? I I think that sometimes we do what I call throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
There are some components of then that will be useful as long as there is humankind on the face of the earth. And there are some things that we are missing that made things more desirable, even to the extent that many low income people then, if they had a problem, I can remember people's houses getting burned down. And at the end of the next week, they had more stuff than they did. They didn't have any insurance and they didn't have the Red Cross, but they had more stuff than they did before the house burned down. I'm saying because all of the neighbors pitched in and people would take the sting off the pain.
Yeah.
I can remember my parents butchering animals, and when they would butcher an animal, everybody in the neighborhood would get a piece of the meat. And it wasn't a matter of holding it in. People felt good being able to share their chitlins with somebody down the street. Now they may not have been good for you, but they was good to you. And I'm saying every Christmas, let me tell you, I am so grateful to my parents because even though they've been gone a long time, but they gave me the opportunity to experience so much joy. Like every Christmas morning, my mother would send me down the road to take somebody somebody that we felt or she felt had less than we did, whatever it was that we had. And she would feel good sending me to do that. So here, go take this to Miss So-and-so. And I'm saying, I had to do this. But now understanding what that meant, it gave her an opportunity to feel joy, being able to give Miss So-and-so something, if it wasn't nothing but a dish. And I'm saying, Miss So-and-so cook her own dish, but it ain't the same. So I'd rather go back to some of that, recapture some of it. And of course, we didn't have as many psychiatrists then. and so people didn't need psychiatrists then. It was okay with whatever they did.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get rid of all the stuff. Get rid of some of it. I noticed we just had elections for leadership. And of course, in many instances, different members would, apply to be whatever and whatever. And there are some people who want to elect the youngest people that they could find. And then there are other people who would select on the basis of other kinds of factors. You know, if it wasn't for grandparents raising grandchildren in our community,
Mhm.
you're talking about children who'd be in real bad shape. 38% at one time of all the children in my congressional district were being raised by someone other than their natural parents. So much and so until now, we actually have a national program called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. It is a national program. It's not just a concept. It's not just an idea. It's a recognition of need.
Yeah.
There are so many homeless children who won't have no Santa Claus and no Christmas and none of that. They will not have it because they don't have anybody to give it to them. They won't have anybody to be able to say, I'm coming down your stocking. Well, you know, I think sometimes we can do a little bit better than what we do. I don't know how much medicine this is, but it sounded like a pretty good conversation to me.
You know what? You're hitting on some real important points. We, in medicine, we often have a lot of discussion with our patients about pain. And you just talked about ways to eliminate pain and suffering by sharing that we may not look at it as being, as you talk about sending your mom sending a dish down to someone in the neighborhood, and we might not especially in our community today, we don't understand the importance of that. But that is medicine. That is a communication, a sharing that help both people. It helps your mom. It also helps the person that received it, because that person understands that there's somebody down there that cares about me enough to give me something and to share something with me that they put something into and that makes them feel better. It isn't about the taste. It's about how you feel in receiving those things. And we also talked about, the grandparents and the grandchildren sharing that life, sharing those experiences. I just think that is the medicine that we are missing. That love and that sharing, because we seem to be in a time now where it's some of the things and some of the that are just hurting our community, the violence and the killing, is opposite of sharing and loving and caring, and we need to have more of that. And Dr. Mason was talking about that as he spoke earlier. That it wasn't just your biological mother that was in charge of your behavior, but there were other people who had been given the authority to help to keep you in check and help to remind you of what it is that you ought to be doing when you were not doing that. And we were able to see that, understand it, and we knew not to act in a way that would be embarrassing to our parents by saying something or doing something to offend the person that was trying to help us get ourselves corrected. So those are things that it seemed like we're missing, and it's like the cake is missing an ingredient, and it just don't taste like cake no more. And we need to and so this life is missing some things that we need, and we need it. Obviously we need it badly, because we're going to a place that isn't a good place for us to be in.
I'll add, I think about, just hearing you guys. We're going to give Nikki the youngest in attendance today, because I want to make sure we respect where she's at in life. but being one of the second youngest, I would say it's so important even when I was in my functional medicine training, I came up with this nest and rope acronym, but the E in the rope is for emotions and life experience. And the reason why I added that is because when I was in that training, we have this functional medicine timeline. And so when we talk to patients, we try to figure out, well, why is it that you have high blood pressure? Going back to that concept, well, it may be because you had a life experience when you were 25 that was so traumatizing that it triggered you. And now all of a sudden my body overreacts to that similar type of experience. So when I think about what I hear on this panel, when I think about how important it is that we are present to, be here for our babies and grandbabies, part of that presence is to bring to the table conversations about, I'm going to keep my cell phone, Dr. Mason, but it's nice that people understand that there was this didn't always exist. It didn't always exist. And it's hard for a young person to even understand that that's a possibility. You have to stay in the kitchen to have a conversation. You can't just walk down the street or be in the mall and have a conversation. And I think it's just so important that somebody is still around. That's why I'm so into keeping people here as long as possible so they can share those messages as much as possible. But I'm also excited about the future. And everybody heard the nuclear fusion news that was announced recently, and that maybe, just maybe we won't have to depend on, digging into the ground to find oil and energy that way. And we know that resource is going to not be here for long anyway, maybe another 50 years or whatever. So for the next generation, if we can come up with alternative forms of energy, that requires innovation, thinking outside the box, and the expertise of brilliant scientists. So I'm really excited about us integrating the past with the future. And hopefully what I've learned about life experiences as I talk to patients about it, I've learned that, if I can learn something from Dr. Mason, if I can learn something from Dr. Graham, Dr. Miller, Congressman Davis, Nikki, if I can learn from my peers, then maybe I won't make the mistakes that I would have otherwise made. So I really want to be I want to have life experiences like we're having tonight. Just being on this panel tonight is an experience. It may make my experience of moving forward with whatever I got to achieve a little easier. It may make it more palatable when I go through a struggle, when I hear of somebody else's struggle and how they overcame it. It may make me more patient with life's journey because I understand that life is a journey. And struggle is part of it. And maybe because of the struggle of somebody before me, I now can handle that struggle more. So I just think we all need to learn from each other. And it doesn't have to be from the wise people on this panel. It could be the little 5-year-old baby that you're having an interaction with who may, point out something. Maybe they'll just make you pause just long enough to notice the ants on the ground. You've been stepping on them all summer. But the grandbaby, they're going to pause and say, wow, look at this, and maybe in that moment, you'll appreciate the magnificent nature of the world. So I think we can learn from each other, and I hope we continue to do that each and every day.
Well,
it's so, you just mentioned a little baby. One of my staff persons has a little girl, and she's a interesting little girl. I guess she's about 4 years old. And she came in my office and she looked down and she said, "Oh, you've taken some of that paper up off the floor that was here the last time." I couldn't believe it. I mean, she said, "Oh, it's nice that you've done." She's about 4 years old. Gerard's little baby. I said, "What she know about my paper and where I got my?"
That's because she noticed everything slows. I'm telling you, babies notice everything because the science shows that everything is going to slow down. So always remember the baby who watches the balloon as it goes in the air, and they're just like, I mean, now we see a balloon and we're just looking the other way. Babies are noticing every part of that. So that baby probably noticed that paper in a way that you had not. And it stuck with them because they and that's why their perception of time is different than ours, because they slow everything that they're experiencing is like for the first time. So they slow it down so they can get the full experience. And we're so, literally, I don't even know how I got home today. We're just on autopilot. We just get in the, we don't even think about what's going on. We just get in the car. But the babies, they slow us down. I think we can learn a lot from them.
Congressman, I would also add that, I mean, there's a lot of value to what you just said. And part of the thing that our technology, our so-called moving forward and becoming more modern has done is it's to the point I'm hearing here, it's depersonalized too many of us. I don't have to, if I say something to somebody that hurts them on the phone or on my cell phone or what have you, I don't have to look at them and see the hurt in their face or see maybe the tears welling up in their eyes. I don't have to see that. And because before we had phones, we had to talk directly to people. We couldn't talk into devices. We had to talk to people, and we had to be in their face and in their space. And we had to, and there were sometimes others that were in that area that may have heard that conversation. And I grew up in a neighborhood where, there was no such thing as any secrets. People, if you said something outside, you don't know Miss So-and-so may be listening, Mr. So-and-so could be listening. And if they were listening, you couldn't tell them, well, this is a private conversation. Oh, no. As a child, there was no such thing as private. Nothing. Nobody had, I don't know, James, you probably remember those days. Wasn't nothing private. If you said it, anybody could hear it. And if it wasn't appropriate, anybody that was in earshot of what you said could correct you, not necessarily do something harmful to you, but correct you and help you understand, especially if what you said made somebody cry. So I think that, yes, the world has sped up, I think, too fast. And we do not we don't even take the time to see how what we say affects other people. And if we don't do that, we won't care how they feel. And unfortunately, we have a generation that doesn't have to be patient because they can go to a device and get to somebody instantaneously without and they don't have to worry about trying to find them later or what happens to them after you've said what you've said. So I just think that to everyone's point, I hope that we can begin this next season being a bit more kinder and a bit more gentler with one another than we have been, and not so callous, because our technology has made it so easy for us to hide behind it when we say things to people that ought not to be said, to Congressman Davis's point.
When you go ahead.
No,
Nikki.
go ahead, Dr. Miller.
No, just on that, I can remember a time we talk about devices and telephones that the main mode of communicating was via the letter. People wrote each other letters, and obviously it took time for the letter to get from one city to another one, and they would answer back. The news was traveling slow, and but it was thoughtful, and generally it was probably even more appreciated because it took time. To sit down and write someone a letter. Much, and as today, not only do we not see their face, we don't hear their voice, because pretty much people communicate by texting or some non-visual, non-verbal method, and therefore you might say something that hurts somebody, you're not even aware of it. You can't hear it in their voice because they're not talking, and you're not talking. You can't see it in their face because they're not visible to you. So these are the things that we need to make certain that we have a little bit more compassion and patience with one another, And as you say, slow it down a little bit. We're you know we're in a, we you know it, we're trying to get some answers, but at the same time, let us not be so fast to discount each other and the value of each other to us, to one to the other. There's value in our relationships, and we need to be happy with that, and to make certain that we maintain that.
Outstanding. So this has been a beautiful conversation. And Dr. Mason, you know what? I think we rest better back in the day of the rotary dial phone. I do. That one phone in the kitchen that you had to turn all the way around. Even though I'm only 26 and I really don't, that one you had to turn all the way around with that rotary phone. I loved it. Because during that time, TV went off. Mahalia Jackson sung that song, scared all the kids to sleep. TV went off. You slept better, and you woke up in the morning. The Bozo Circus. It was outstanding. To a hot breakfast too. So I'm just saying it was better. We need to go back to those days because now you just watch TV and infomercials and buy stuff, and then you wonder why you broke in the morning. Motivation 360 says, greetings to everyone once again. Bonnie Schmetley is here and she says, good evening and thank you all for sharing this knowledge. Virginia Knight says, evening, everyone. Arlene Spencer says, good evening, everyone. Doretha John says, good evening, everyone. Nellie Purnell King says, good evening to everyone. And she says, so true, Dr. Mason. Doretha Jackson also says, so true. It takes a village to make things happen. I miss our big mamas and papas. Robert Renta says, go to the Barrios, and he leaves the website from the Barrio. And Natalie Purnell also says, absolutely, she is in agreement. And then Doretha Johnson once again says, slow is good. Slow is good. Well, we have entered that time that I know you guys hate to hear me talk about, which means we have exhausted our hour. We're going to go around really quickly and just ask everyone to leave there until next Mondays. Doug, what's your until next Monday?
There we go. Thank you, Nikki. I've been thinking about this conversation and thinking about the holiday that's coming up. And as Dr. Mason says, when you text somebody and you do all this other stuff, you're not in person. Though when you're going to those holiday parties and you're in person with somebody, here's your opportunity to reconnect and re-experience them as whole human beings. And so that would be my thought for next week is let's think about the whole human being instead of that 3-second text.
Outstanding. Well, Charles Edward Birmingham McDonald Senior says, good evening. Thank you, big brother, for getting mom healthy. Dr. Miller, your until next Monday.
Well, again, we are in the seasons of giving. Let's give this season. I'm not talking about physical gift. Let's give love to one another and respect and compassion and caring.
Outstanding. Dr. Terry Mason, your until next Monday.
One of the things that I'm going to be doing is finishing up my quiz for my children and grandchildren for the so-called Christmas, because I want to make sure they understand the real reason for the season. And it's not about exchanging gifts. It's not about creating all these other things. It's about understanding what was happening to a man that in many faiths they call Yeshua or Jesus or whatever, but what was about to happen to happen for him. And we forget all about that. And I think if we think about themes that go into the love that came out of that experience because of what was happening, if we could somehow begin to harness that, and I'm doing that with a quiz for my kids and grandkids. We're going to look at a movie first, and then we're going to go through all these people that are parts of this thing. And I'm not bringing one gift to anybody. The gift that I want to give is myself, my time, and my opportunity to help them understand that this is not about what you've been made to think it's about. And we need to reinforce that message to show the love and compassion, which is what is really undergirding this season.
Amen to that.
Amen. And Jermaine Ellen Fain says just that. Amen. Miss Sister Bonnie says, fellowship, dinner table discussions, how your day has been. Devices have taken the place of our communication. Well, this is time for us to take it back. Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
And that's actually a great message, Nikki. Take it back. I think it's important that we model for our young people what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Be a parent, be a grandparent. It's okay to put that thing on mute for a little bit, and because you can't have a conversation at the dinner table if you're not having a conversation at the dinner table. So, and it's okay to. I think we need to eat together. There's no need for the kids in the room over there with video games in one hand and a piece of ribs in the other. And that's not the right answer. You need to be present with each other, set an example so that they'll understand that. I do want to do a shout out to my real half brother, Charles Edward Bingham David Sr., because he is my real half brother. So I want to do a shout out to him. But I think as we wrap up, I do want to ask for your in your prayers, because tomorrow I will stand before my leadership and say to them, wellness and healing is the way of the future. And my hope is to engage in some research that focuses on wellness to help people heal. I really think this is important because most of the people who, kind of preach the gospel that I preach about wellness are kind of doing it in isolation. They're doing it on YouTube. They're doing it on social media. They're doing it at conferences, but we need large health systems to do this work. So it is my hope after tomorrow's conversation that we'll start that journey. And just so you know, Advocate Aurora is now combined with Atrium, and now it's Advocate Healthcare. We're in 6 states. So imagine the 6th largest health system, the potential of a health system with that kind of scale, which would then understand this model of wellness. And then if we do a great job, what would that mean for other health systems? So I just really ask for your prayers for them to hear that message tomorrow. And hopefully that'll be the beginning of something new for our health system. And with that, I hope everybody have a great night.
Great, outstanding. Just want to remind everyone that Jesus is the reason for the season. Know that around the holidays, and actually including Super Bowl Sunday, episodes of domestic violence go up. So let's sit and share. Let's have real conversations. Let's talk through things. And like the congressman said earlier, let's learn how to share and get along. I mean, that has really been the conversation here today. I challenge all doctors nationally who are here on our webinar listening to write a prescription for love, write a prescription for sharing, write a prescription for caring. Also want to remind everyone who is here with us today, be a part of the trend. What do I mean? COVID numbers are going up like crazy. Let's be safe and let's keep one another safe. Let's make sure that we have picked up our final dose, our newest dose. Let me not say final. Let me say our newest dose of our COVID vaccine. Let's make sure that you are on trend and that you are up to date in your vaccines. Want to keep yourself healthy, your family's healthy, all of your friends and everyone that you are around are healthy. Let's make sure you get the latest vaccine. They are offered everywhere. Let's make sure that everyone is on trend to do that. Congressman, take us home.
Well, let me just thank everybody. I mean, it is a great season. And whatever it is that you think about it, I was listening to the news today, and I understand that there was a poll taken and 1,000 people were interviewed. And there's still a lot of people who believe in Santa Claus in the United States. And 46% of the people indicated that their children believe in Santa Claus. And there are a lot of people who don't have any Santa Claus to believe in. My daddy was a very funny, serious guy. And sometimes he'd try to teach us stuff. And I remember one time he says, look, y'all, say it ain't no Santa, and it ain't no claw. It ain't nothing but your mowing paw. And I guess he was saying whatever we was gonna get for Christmas, it was coming from them. And if we wanted to thank anybody, we better look the gift horse in the mouth, the real gift horse. But it's such a wonderful time. I mean, I feel sorry for people who maybe can't enjoy certain kind of stuff. I mean, Christmas, oh, the Christmas stories, I could watch some of that stuff all night on television. The shepherds out there in the field watching over their sheep, soft music, Mary and Joseph in the crib with the horses and the hay, way in a manger, no crib for a bed. The little Lord Jesus lay his sweet head. And so all of that stuff is designed, I think, to help us through the times and the things that we experience. I like to read songs. And I opened up a song book the other day, and the songwriter said, when this old world is cold and your friends are few, there is someone who cares for you. He'll come down from the sky and wipe the tears from your eyes because you're his child. And I guess all of us, in a way, are children of the King. And if we believe that, this period gives us an opportunity to express in so many different ways. We are having on Friday something called Winter in Wonderland. And we've got coats, brand new ones. We've got toys. We've got meat for some families.
We got hams, Dr. Mason. Dr. Mason, we got hams.
Hams to give away. You don't have to eat it. I mean, you can look at it. You can smell it. Do whatever. But we are having this wonderful event, giveaway and all, on Friday, beginning at 4:00. Anybody who feel like coming by, having a drink of Jack Daniels or some eggnog, or whatever it is you drink, we'd be delighted to have you. But please do, and thank you so much. And Jesus, in my mind, is the reason for the season. So thank you all. Many of you may not know it, but you've been some wonderful Santa Clauses to an awful lot of people with the gifts that you have given to them and to all of us all the year. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful holiday season. May the good Lord bless and keep you all. And until next Monday, we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye. Oh, yeah.